Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. It is a Thursday edition of the show, which makes it the last show of the week. But you know what? That's all right. It's been a fun-filled, action-packed week with signings and re-signings and a lot more optimism about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week than in the previous, month or so. So we're going to kind of recap everything that went on for the Bucs. Great press conferences today with Jason Licht, Anthony Nelson, and Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean was the star of the show, of course. Don't make a scene. It's just Dean. And we'll talk a little bit about what's next for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who should they go after? What position should they address next in free agency? So a lot of stuff to get to on tonight's show. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my colleague from PewterReport.com, Adam Slavan. We call him Sly. Adam, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm okay. I was happier earlier today. Well, I woke up in a bad mood because I found out Edwin Diaz, the closer of the Mets, is going to be out for the whole season with essentially a torn ACL. Then I was in a good mood after talking to Jamel Dean, Anthony Nelson, and Jason Licht. A lot of great info. We got a ton of videos we're going to play on today's show. And then I got pissed off again because none of my bets are hitting in March Madness, and I had Arizona winning it all, and they just lost to Princeton. So it's been an up and down day. Overall, I'm in a good mood. Happy to be with the Pewter people. Shout out to everybody in the comments. Feel free to put who you picked in your bracket for March Madness. Adam, did you make one?
I did not make one this year.
What the hell, man?
I've never had good luck in the past, and I actually didn't recall it was today until this afternoon. I was like, missing the madness, but
too late. All right.
With the Bucs, there's been enough madness. So
that's true. There has been a ton of madness with your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just want to get your reaction, Adam, to some of the moves that have been made. Obviously, Baker Mayfield, you have written about. Levante David's back. Jamel, Anthony, who we were talking about before. Just your thoughts on some of the moves that the Bucs have made and the re-signings and just the overall job of Jason Licht and Mike Greenberg, Jackie Davidson. Do they deserve keys to the city?
They might deserve keys to the city for the job they've done in free agency. And I'm very surprised that they were able to keep both Dean and Nelson. I really did not expect Jamel Dean to be the Bucs cornerback next season. And the fact that they were able to keep him on such a reasonable deal, only guaranteeing about half of his contract at $13 million a year when projections were $17 to $18 million a year, just a great job. And it's very hard for a team to find one number one cornerback. But the Bucs have two, in Davis and Dean. And they were also college teammates at Auburn, which is very cool and just kind of illustrates how important chemistry is. And Jason Licht kind of mentioned like the culture building and keeping like guys in town is really important. And just going on Nelson had a really solid season last year that kind of allowed him to get a bigger contract. And he led the team in forced fumbles, had, I believe, 5.5 sacks, and he's going to be a great rotational pass rusher. And it also gives him some stability with both Shaq Barrett and JTS. You don't know how they're going to do next season. And I also think that the team will also bring in a pass rusher early in the NFL draft within maybe rounds 2 or 3. So it sets them up well. They've done better in free agency than perhaps many out there would have believed. And bringing in Baker Mayfield, it kind of evens out the playing field in the NFC South in terms of quarterbacks with Derek Carr, Taylor Heineke, and Mayfield. Pretty similar production between the three. And then you'll obviously see what Carolina will do with the number one pick.
Yeah, it will be very interesting with what they have to do. And I think what is so fascinating what the Bucs front office was able to do is the fact that they essentially came into this free agency with one arm tied behind their back because you knew they didn't have money and you knew there were so many positions to fill. And that's why it was fascinating, especially Jamel Dean, man. I mean, you had credited, well-respected, like national media writers and reporters saying Jamel Dean's going to get the bag. He could get $17 million a year. And then the fact that he's not even the highest paid corner on the team, playing with his buddy Carlton Davis, who's getting $14 million a year, and Jamel gets $13 million a year, and for 4 seasons. Remember, they signed Carlton to a 3-year deal. So the fact that they were able to do that, and then Lavonte David, it's definitely surprising, without question. I think it made more sense as the days went on when you saw the other deals that the inside linebackers were getting. It made a little more sense, but going into it, $7 million every single person would have absolutely signed up for. And that's why I saw some people knocking the Anthony Nelson signing with the amount of money he's getting, essentially $5.5 million per year, but they were able to overspend because of the deals that they were able to get with Jamel Dean and Lavonte David. Like I said at the beginning, they came in with their hands tied. All right, this was not going to be easy. Oh, let's sign everybody. We can get any player that we want. No, the Bucs had to find value, and they found value bringing in their own guys. Now, let's remember, with the Bucs' struggles last year, the defense wasn't really the struggle. You know, they Scott pointed it out yesterday on the show. They had, a 7-3 record when they only allowed 21 points or less. This defense is good. It is solid. It will keep them in games. It is on the offense to turn things around. Big question, obviously, without Tom Brady there, and you have a new offensive coordinator, and Baker Mayfield in the mix now, and Kyle Trask obviously competing for that job. You keep the core on the defense, which essentially they've done. They are going to be okay on that side of the ball for next season. I feel very confident about the defense.
For sure. But I do believe, in terms of like all the free agents that are left for the Bucs, I believe there's 18 of them. Yeah. Their next move will be on the defensive side.
Mm-hmm.
And whether
that's what you think?
That's what I think. We can kind of dive into that. Whether that's maybe safety and Logan Ryan, Keanu Neal, Mike Edwards, defensive line without Golston, who by not signing him yesterday at 4 p.m., they take on his full $2.4 million dead cap hit for next season. Or even just like edge rusher, bringing in perhaps Carl Nassib back into the fold.
Yeah, so let me ask you about this, because I brought it up on yesterday's show, and that is the topic today. What is Tampa Bay going to do next? And I think defensively, it's fairly obvious safety. Like, they're going to have to find either a veteran safety, bring him back, Logan Ryan, Keanu Neal, or maybe go in a different direction. I think defensive line is in there as well, but outside linebacker, definitely in the conversation. And I love Carl Nassib. I like the energy that he brings. Obviously well liked by his teammates. And this isn't, and I said this yesterday, I'm kind of repeating myself, but whatever. It's nothing on Carl Nassib specifically. It's the entire outside linebacker group. I think we're kind of all in agreement, or we understand. The outside linebackers underperformed last year, whether it was Shaq Barrett getting hurt, who really wasn't playing that well up until getting injured in that Thursday night game, whether it was JTS in the up and down play. The two best outside linebackers were Anthony Nelson and Carl Nassib. And Anthony Nelson had 5.5 sacks. All right, he's not TJ Watt by any means. And I am happy that he is back. If the outside linebacker room was arguably the most disappointing group, the group that struggled the most, why is the strategy all of a sudden, hey, let's bring all of them back and we're going to get a different result? I think that's where drafting an outside linebacker within the first 1 to 4 rounds is really where you're going to see an upkick in the edge rusher game. Because if anything, it's just going to put more fuel to the fire to JTS, to Anthony Nelson, and on and on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And by bringing back Nelson, perhaps it eliminates the Bucs drafting 2 edge rushers. Now they may only draft 1, but it's evident they need to bring in somebody young and athletic, kind of in that JTS mold. Maybe more developed than JTS was coming out of college. Somebody like the guy from Kansas State, Uzomah.
Yeah, Uzomah. Yeah, Felix Anudike Uzomah. I've gotten better at it. Scott obviously nails it every single time, but he would definitely be an interesting guy to pick. And it kind of goes back to we're kind of switching it up here, but like there was a thought for a little bit wide receiver could be the first round pick for the Bucs, but it's like, do you really want to pick a guy that's going to be at fourth string at best, maybe third string? Is that who you want to take with your first round pick? Kind of the same with outside linebacker now. With Shaq Barrett, it's like, are you going to pick a guy first round that's going to be third string competing with Anthony Nelson? Maybe he gets the second string. I don't know. How do you see it?
I think with the signings and the way that the Bucs prioritize them, going cornerback and then bringing back Anthony Nelson, kind of leads you to think maybe Brian Branch is the pick, or maybe picking a cornerback from the deep corner class set, whether it's Cam Smith, Manuel Forbes, Joey Porter Jr. There's so many corners that the Bucs could look at taking, and maybe getting one of those guys, putting them in the nickel position and moving back Antoine Winfield. Logan here mentions offensive tackle. That's still an option too. If somebody falls down the board, or if they reach up, grab somebody like Anton Harrison or Darnell Wright. Those are probably the two positions I see the Bucs really targeting in the NFL draft now.
Yeah, we'll get back to safety in just a moment, but since there was the mention of offensive line, so Jason Licht was up at the podium with Jamel Dean and Anthony Nelson today, and obviously he was geared about Jamel and Anthony, but Jason got asked about Baker and got asked about some other things going on, and offensive line was one of them. So obviously Donovan Smith is cut. The Bucs need to decide what they want to do at left tackle, whether that's move Tristan Wirfs over, and then you got to find a right tackle, whether you're going to keep Tristan on the right side, and you have to find a left tackle. The other part of the equation is Luke Gedeke. You obviously have a lot of depth at offensive guard now with the re-signing of Aaron Stinney. You got Nick Leverett in there, the incumbent starter from last year when he took over for Gedeke. Who am I missing? Robert Hainsey now, obviously, who goes from starting center to in the competition. So Jason Licht was kind of asked about the depth at offensive guard, what he wants to do with Luke Gedeke, and what the plan is for Tristan Wirfs. So he gets into all of that. His second response is about Luke Gedeke, and then the last one he talks about Tristan Wirfs. So let's get into a little bit of this press conference with Jason Licht talking about the offensive line.
We have a lot of confidence in Nick, Brandon. Robert. I think we have a lot of depth and players that can actually start for us. We're going to continue to add there. We got the off season here. We've got the draft. We've got all the way up until our first game. So we're not playing in 2 weeks. So we have a lot of time to do it. But we have a lot of confidence in these guys. We're not making any decisions right now today. I think things can change in a matter of a couple days or a couple weeks, or still got the draft coming up. But we're happy with the fact that we think that he can play both guard and tackle at a pretty high level.
What about Tristan out at the left tackle spot?
Well, ever since we drafted Tristan, we've talked about that. So I think right now it's just talk. That we have the off season. We still have a lot of time here to see how this unfolds.
Bucs have a lot of depth at offensive line, specifically offensive guard, and Celsius has a lot of depth just when it comes to their flavors. They got some new flavors that they're rolling out right now. That's the Fantasy Vibe and the Sparkling Lemon Lime. Both delicious and fantastic. Cannot recommend it enough. 7 essential vitamins with Celsius energy drinks. No crash, no post-energy drink jitters that you might get with some other products out there. If you want to get a Celsius and enjoy all the flavors that they have, whether it's the new ones, the Arctic and Peach vibes, the tropical vibes, or the sparkling watermelon, sparkling wild berry, sparkling kiwi guava, all different flavors. Go to the store locator on the Celsius website, punch in your address, find out where you can get a Celsius near you at your local Walmart, Target, convenience store, 7-Eleven, or your bodega, as everyone seems to be infatuated with when I say it. But once you know that you can get your Celsius at your local bodega and you're like, I want more, that's when you go over to Amazon, do the subscribe and save, get the variety packs. Variety's the spice of life, and there's so many awesome flavors of Celsius energy drinks. Go over to Amazon, pick whatever one you want, and have it sent to your house or apartment every week, month, quarterly, yearly if you want to. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Adam, I think I saw you drinking a Celsius there. Am I right? What were you rocking?
Yeah, I got the mango passion fruit.
Awesome. There you go.
Yeah.
That's one of the, maybe not the newest, but one of the newer flavors of Celsius Energy Drink. So make sure you all check it out. Great flavors over at Celsius. All right. Let's get back into, we'll kind of jump all over the place today because we did have Jamel Dean and, we did have Anthony Nelson and Jason Licht. We want to talk about what's next. We kind of talked about the offensive line there. This safety situation, though, Antoine Mayfield Jr. is going to stay or move back to free safety where he was, his rookie year, his second year, they move him to nickel, and he wasn't bad. I just think he thrived a little bit more when it came to the, the free safety position. So you got Mike Edwards, free agent, Logan Ryan, free agent, Keanu Neal as well. I get the feeling that if the Bucs are going to bring in any type of veteran safety, they're most likely going to go in-house with the three guys I mentioned over someone new. How do you see it, and who would you pick if you could only get one out of those three? Who would be your choice?
Ooh, that's a good question. If I had to pick one of the three, I'd pick Mike Edwards, just based on the fact he's probably the most complete player, along with having youth on his side. Logan Ryan would also be a really good third safety, I feel like, as a reserve. Last year, he was limited by injury at times, but when he was on the field, had a big interception against Green Bay, and then also had a fumble recovery. But Mike Edwards last year, he kind of showed at times the playmaking ability, but being thrust into the starting role, he struggled maybe a little bit in terms of coverage. But I would still say he has the most upside of the three and would be the one I'd bring back. Now, the costs there, the Bucs have made it work with Jamel Dean and Anthony Nelson. Can they also squeeze Mike Edwards into the mix on maybe a deal of $4 to $5 million annually? That's a whole nother question. But of the safeties that you mentioned, I would go with Edwards.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, especially with the youth and his overall friendship and chemistry with Carlton and Jamel, who are younger guys compared to Logan Ryan and Keanu Neal. I have Mike Edwards second. I still would go with Logan Ryan first, man. Yeah. I think we can't overlook the clutch factor of what he did early on in the season with the forced fumbles and the interceptions, and that kind of went away when Logan Ryan went on the shelf. And Mike Edwards' claim to fame before he was a full-time starter was that he's a ball hawk. He's going to get after, the interceptions and everything like that. And, the Saints game was awesome. You had the pick six and everything. But after that, his only other interception came against the Cleveland Browns on a halftime Hail Mary where, it was a softball, and Mike's a big baseball fan. So obviously he made the play. I do think there was a little bit of a learning curve, though, for Mike Edwards. It was his first year as a full-time starter, so I'd be really intrigued to see him in his second year as that full-time starter. Like, how much did he learn in that first year about himself and about playing in this type of defense? And I think all safeties around the league that have played for Todd Bowles are usually better for it. I mean, Jordan Whitehead got a contract because of it. As UK Prince says, we ain't been full bore at safety since Jordan Whitehead hit his way to a Super Bowl. Now, Keanu Neal's supposed to be the new hard hitter for the Bucs, I guess, when Jordan Whitehead left. And to a degree, he was that. He had that big pass breakup on Taysom Hill in the Bucs Saints game at Raymond James Stadium, where if the Saints make that catch, the game's probably over and the Bucs lose. So he made a huge play there. I do think they can kind of replace Keanu Neal in the draft with that hard hitting type of safety. So I think Neal's last on the totem pole there out of the three safeties that we mentioned. I still think, he's a solid player, and if the Bucs want to bring him back for the veteran minimum, I'm not against it by any means. But yeah, I would go Ryan, Edwards, and then Keanu Neal. Now, when it comes to cornerback, would you still pick a corner in the first round, knowing that you have Carlton and Jamel there? Or do you think that kind of falls to a day 2, maybe round 3 type of situation? Because there's a lot of depth in this year's corner class, which I think allows the Bucs to wait and see what falls to them.
Yeah. So if the Bucs were to bring back maybe one of the 3 safeties that we mentioned, I would lean towards maybe going with Brian Branch as kind of like a safety slot corner hybrid. Now, if like 2 safeties return, I see like the Bucs maybe going cornerback in the 3rd round, getting a guy maybe like Julius Brents, who we've mentioned.
Yep.
Kyle Blue Kelly. Those are both options that make sense instead of reaching for somebody and maybe grabbing a position that they don't necessarily need. Kind of the same argument with getting an offensive lineman and maybe having them be a backup or an edge rusher and not having them start right away. You don't want to draft a cornerback and then have them be the 4th string if they bring back a guy like SMB. And they still have Zion McCollum too. And they really want to see him develop as a player. So corner in the first round doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if it's the best player available, it's worth a shot. If it's a guy like Devin Witherspoon, definitely. But I don't know how far.
Yeah, it all depends. Like, it's a balance of depth versus like best player available. And sometimes you don't want to pass up the best player available, even if you are kind of filled up at that position. As Stephen Williams says, hey, everyone. What up, Stephen? Thank you very much for watching. I think another name to pay attention to, talking about like the 3rd round of the draft, is Alex Austin from Oregon State. He fits the bill for the Bucs in terms of tall, lanky corners, pretty good in coverage, had a lot of pass breakups, not a ton of interceptions, which we know the rest of the Bucs corners have filled that one up pretty well. But yeah, he's a name that came to mind. He was in my Bucs battle plan mock draft. Who'd you take as a corner? I believe
I took Kyle Blue Kelly.
Yeah, you took Kyle Blue Kelly. That's right. Who obviously has his own connections to the Tampa area. But let's stick at cornerback, but talk about the guy that we spoke to today. That was Jamel Dean. I mean, he came in smiling. He was waving to everybody as he walked in. Understandably so. I mean, the guy just got paid and, overcame the odds. I think people forget, like, Jamel Dean was almost written off in college because he had some knee injuries at Ohio State, and he began his career at Ohio State. The Buckeyes would not allow him to play, and they said he had a 3% chance of even like making it as a football player before his career would be done. And, he beat the odds there, went to Auburn, had a solid career, and then got drafted by the Buccaneers. So this was a special day for Jamel Dean for everything that he overcame. He talked a lot about mental health as well, how he was pretty open about being an advocate for everybody else getting help. So, yeah, a lot of great stuff from Jamel Dean today. He talked as well about the negotiation process. He said he had a good poker face because he ran into Jason Licht at Eulalie in Tampa. And he talked a little bit about his conversation with Carlton Davis that helped him sway his decision. So we're going to play a couple videos. We'll start with Jason Licht and his introductory comments. Then we'll get into the introductory comments from Jamel Dean and Anthony Nelson. And then I'll play Dean's comments about, the negotiation process and his conversation with Carlton Davis and getting to play with Carlton Davis again. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some of these videos that we're going to play in a row.
So, extremely excited to be here today. It's a very underrated moment when organization signs an extension to a player that they drafted, brought up, developed. Sometimes you tend to celebrate the guy that you sign in free agency from another team a little bit more, but in this case, I think we're more excited because it shows that not only do we want them back, because we feel like they're great players that are going to help us win another championship, but they also wanted to be here. And in the case of Anthony and Jamel, I know that they had a lot of opportunities, so did Levante, but a second contract is awesome. In terms of Levante, a fourth contract, but that's a whole nother story, which is awesome. But these guys epitomize what we look for, not just on the field, but off the field. So very excited. We're all excited about these guys, and I'm going to turn it over to Jamel and Anthony.
First Dean, just Dean. But I appreciate you, Jason, because I honestly didn't want to leave, man. I'm a born and raised in Florida. I'm close to home. I'm comfortable. So I was like, why would I leave?
Wish I would have known that.
Poker face.
We ran into each other Saturday night at Ukulele. He had his poker face on.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Held me hostage.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa's been great to my family. You know, got a lot of opportunities here, and excited for another one, man. We got a lot of work to do, and we got a lot more to prove. So, me personally, and as an organization, so I felt like it was a good fit for me.
I went like 2 seasons of college without my knees being a problem, and then when I ran a 4.30 at the combine, I was like, that should eliminate the knee situation. So, you know, just being able to overcome all the adversity, it's a great feeling to get a second contract, because sometimes there was a little bit of doubt, like how long my knees gonna hold up, but they did. They still got a couple more years in them.
Yeah, I remember like Ohio State,
That they couldn't make an offer that would keep you here?
Yeah, I was a little worried. I was like, ugh. I would hate to have to go up north, because, man, I don't like the cold, really. But, you know, they started making an adjustment, and I was just like, okay, there's a chance. And then Carson called me, and was like, yo, they really want you. I was like, ooh, okay. So they started leaning towards my favor now. So then, you know, things worked out, and I'm happy to be here.
Jamel, how important was it for you to reunite with Carlton, get that dynamic duo back at corner and Antoine at safety as well?
You know, it's a great feeling, because me and Carlton, we've been following each other since high school. So we was both of it. It was crazy. In the All-American game in California, he was actually my roommate. And then, you know, we fought then. You know, we went our separate ways in college. I went to Ohio State. He was committed to Ohio State too, but I just early enrolled. And then things didn't work out. Then we both ended up at Auburn together alongside. And then he left early to go to the draft. I tried to get him to stay another year, but he didn't want to do it. And then once he got to the Bucs, I was excited for it. And the next year, I get a phone call from Jason. I was like, what? I'm reuniting with Carson again? And then we got here, just like, boy, we just can't get away from each other, can we?
I was going to play another video or two, but not only did we get a super chat, we got a ginormous super chat. Wow. One of the largest super chats we've ever gotten in Pewter Report history. So we will stop the presses to immediately get to this. Shout out to Adam Hamilton for the $99.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate that. Adam says, boys, I love the show. Thank you, Adam. We love you. Keep up the great work. I think we take Bijan Robinson. I know this is blasphemy to some. Listen, he's arguably the best player in the draft. He could add such an explosive element to our offense. What do y'all think? Go Bucs forever and twice on Sundays. Adam, friggin' love you, man. Thank you so much for this super chat. Other Adam, I'll let you take this one first. How do you feel about it?
So at one point, I was kind of, I wouldn't say pounding the table, but I was making a strong case that the Bucs should draft Bijan Robinson and adding not only a running back who would come in and maybe be a top 5, top 10 running back in the NFL right away, but also a receiver, somebody you can kind of line up and be versatile in different packages. He's a really good offensive player and probably a top 5 player in the draft class. And a lot of the argument against it, obviously, is that the running back position isn't as valued in today's NFL as it was maybe 15, 20 years ago. If he was in the 2003 NFL draft, he'd be the number 1 or number 2 pick.
Yeah, he'd be like the next LT.
Yeah. And he actually compares very well to like LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah.
And just his build and just being versatile. So he'd be a really great pick, but it's kind of a luxury pick. If this was a Bucs team maybe 2 years ago and they're in the Super Bowl window, yeah, go ahead and draft Bijan Robinson. But when there's so many holes to fill and there's so much value at other positions, it makes it really hard to justify it.
That's pretty much how I feel about it. Once again, I thank you so much, Adam, for the super chat. I don't necessarily agree with Bijan Robinson picking him there. He's an extremely exciting player. Do not get me wrong. Best running back in the draft, one of the best players in the draft. He might not even be there at 19, as someone else had mentioned in the comments. I just think for a couple of things. One, the fact that the Bucs have so many other holes to address: corner before the Jamel Dean signing, defensive line, edge rusher, offensive tackle. If you don't have a starting left tackle, I don't think it matters as much what Bijan Robinson is going to do, because you need to block for Bijan Robinson. You also have Rachaad White ready to go. And, of course, the Bucs made another free agent signing today. They signed Chase Edmonds, the former Cardinals running back, to a one-year deal. But it's very clear-cut that Rachaad White is going to be the guy. So, I don't think you need to push Rachaad White to the wayside to have Bijan Robinson and do the two running back system, when I think Rachaad White kind of earned the opportunity to be running back one. So the Bucs can allocate their draft pick in the first round with so many different areas, whether it's safety or offensive line, like offensive tackle, specifically what we talked about. The other thing, I'm with you. If this was a couple of seasons ago, yeah, maybe you do take a shot with Bijan Robinson and just completely ball out on offense. But if you don't really know what you're getting at the quarterback position, you're only going to be able to run the ball so much. If you don't know that Kyle Trask is the guy, or Baker Mayfield is going to be a top-level quarterback for you, it's kind of tough to justify drafting a running back when the guy throwing to that running back, as much as they would use Bijan Robinson in the passing game, if the guy throwing to you isn't going to do a good job, then the draft pick probably doesn't really add up. And the last thing I would say to this, if you look at the history of drafting running backs early on, I mean, obviously Saquon Barkley a couple years ago, he was the second overall pick, actually after Baker Mayfield, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So shout out to that 2018 draft class. Saquon, Derrick Henry was another early first-round pick. The Giants last season was the best season they ever had with Saquon Barkley in terms of winning as a team. Saquon obviously burst onto the scene as a rookie and in his second year. But as a team, the best the Giants did was make it to the second round of the playoffs and got smoked by the Philadelphia Eagles. The Tennessee Titans, they had that good run a couple seasons ago where they went to the AFC Championship game and lost to the Chiefs. But teams that have drafted running backs early, they haven't made it to the Super Bowl. And that's not to say that running backs are not an important pick by any means. But I think it's showing that you don't necessarily have to go with them in the first round. I don't want to say they're devalued, but maybe they're devalued in the first round, even if they are a great home run pick, like Bijan Robinson probably will be, like Saquon Barkley was. It's just really difficult to say, let's get this guy in the first round when you see Pacheco and the Chiefs in the seventh round being productive. Not the same amount of production, but productive. And you want a Super Bowl with a seventh round running back as your main guy.
Yeah, and just kind of add to you, I have two more points. So running backs often have their biggest impact in their first couple of seasons in the league. Another recent high draft pick, Ezekiel Elliott, who was released by the Cowboys. Yeah. He had his best seasons the first 3 years in the league. He was the best running back, led the league in rushing yards per game. And then after that, he had injuries and his yards per carry went down. And running backs, they have a very short lifespan, and the team has to be in really good position to win now. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Bucs, but when you mentioned Derrick Henry, the Titans built their offense around Derrick Henry and then kind of utilized a game manager quarterback in Marcus Mariota and then Ryan Tannehill, and they are still able to have success. And having Dave Canales, who has so much experience with running backs and being successful in Seattle, if you had a guy like Bijan Robinson, the Bucs would have they'd go from the worst rushing offense to maybe top 5. But how much does that really equate to wins? That's another question.
Speaking of like building a team and things like that, Jason Licht kind of had a message for his critics today. Obviously, the Bucs made a lot of re-signings. They've pushed a lot of money down the road for a variety of reasons, including like trying to get Tom Brady back and trying to move around cap space for this season. So Jason Licht had some awesome, I'm not going to lie, it was a great line. He had some awesome things to say to his haters out there. So let's get to that clip.
Well, I don't want to say that I was 100% confident that
Right.
because, you never know. I knew that everybody here is going to have some opportunities along with coming back here. So, but I was confident that we would be able to put our best foot forward. And I was confident that they wanted to be here. I knew that. And because of, the coaching staff that we have, the front office that we have, and the players that we have, like I said, if I go back in time, I would do it all again. We pushed, we borrowed about $100 million against this year's cap and future cap to do what we did. Came close the second time, but if anybody wants to criticize what they did, they can come to any of our 3 homes and look at our ring. So we're happy about that. So, and we're going to pursue another one too.
I loved everything about the last, 15 seconds of that. If anyone's got a problem, you can come to any of our 3 homes and see our rings. And so we're going to pursue another one too. Light also spoke earlier in the press conference talking about just how proud he is of the rest of the front office, Mike Greenberg, Jackie Davis, for the job they've done. I mean, if you go back to the year one, constructing the Super Bowl roster, but 2, the year after, they were able to re-sign everybody, Levante, Ndamukong Suh, a number of different guys, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they were able to bring back, convince Gronk to come back. And then this year, similar, a little bit different, but similar, where they got Levante back. They were able to sign Jamel Dean when no one thought that was possible. Same thing with Anthony Nelson. So here's Jason Licht just talking about how confident he was that they would get everybody back, specifically Jamel Dean and Anthony Nelson, and just, give some props where it's due to the rest of the front office.
Well, I could talk all day about how proud I am of, the team that we have. Mike, Greenberg, Jackie, the whole front office, John, everybody. We've been working on this plan for a long time, and like you said, there were really tough decisions, but I have a lot of confidence in these people, and there's a lot of challenges, and we were able to get through it. Kind of sort of coming through the back end of it now, but never once did we ever think that we were not going to be a good team this year. We have a lot of good players entering their prime, players in their prime, players that haven't even scratched the surface of their prime. And it's the same situation that drew Tom Brady to want to come sign here. It's a very similar team. And we're not done. We're going to have some more. We have to do make a little bit more responsible or reasonable signings right now because of where we're at. But sometimes you get your best deals and you get your best players, contributors from that. So these guys wanted to come back. They believe in the vision that we all have here with our coaches, with our front office, and that's going to continue.
Good stuff from Jason Licht. Tom Foolery says Dean cannot stop grinning. I was so happy for Jamel Dean. Anthony Nelson was happy too. He was a little more stoic about it, but nothing wrong with that. I honestly can't remember. I was so mesmerized by the great super chat that we got from Adam. I believe I played the video of Jamel talking about his relationship with Carlton and the fact I didn't know this, that they were roommates at the All-American game, like the high school All-American game. That is so cool. I did not realize that. I knew obviously the Auburn connection and everything like that, but
you really can't get away from him.
You cannot, no matter what, at all. Yeah, definitely cannot. I got a couple more videos to play. Jamel Dean spoke about getting, playing for Todd Bowles was like really important to him. And he talked about there was a time when he was a rookie. I think it was Bucs Seahawks in Seattle for Bucs fans that remember that. And Carlton Davis was like a late scratch. And so Jamel Dean had to like half an hour before the game, it was like, all right, you're the starter now. And he talked about kind of like panicking in that moment. And then from then on, he wanted to be as prepared as possible, watch a ton of video, and then he wanted to pretty much see the game the way Todd Bowles sees the game. So this is a cool thing from Jamel Dean. You're about to find out what it was.
So rookie year, I had the first humbling experience in the league. The whole, I used to hear the saying, prepare like you're going to play because you may never know when your name is going to be called. I really didn't believe that until it actually happened. So that was like a humbling experience for me. So I was like, man, I had one opportunity, and this is how I performed. And then so hopefully, so ever since that moment, that's when I started going up to Bowles and told him, like, teach me the game of football. So whenever my next opportunity comes, I'll make the most of it. And then it happened. The opportunity actually happened the next game we played the Cardinals. And then I went from having my worst game to my best game in a 2-game span. So that was so I seen like my potential. So then I just try to just build on it each year and to get smarter. Then my third, then my last year, that's when I really honed in on I want to know the game like Bowles, so I can play faster. And then so I came in I've been here since phase 1, and then I did every OTAs, and then just kept studying. So when time for training camp, I just play fast, and when season starts, I started off on the high note.
But you had a lot of reasons.
Well, it was really big because me and him, we put in a lot of work together. So it's why would I let another coach reap the benefits of what me and Bowles did? so that was really big because I only want to be coached by Bowles. He the one that taught me everything I know.
Make a scene. It's just Dean. Let's talk a little bit about Anthony Nelson. His importance to the outside linebacker room. I mean, I think we overlooked that towards the end of the year, they were down to 2 outside linebackers, and it was JTS and it was Anthony Nelson. And Anthony Nelson was the best edge rusher last year. And the fact that he played every single snap was so important to the Bucs when they really needed it.
Yeah, definitely. He was a key player down the stretch for the Bucs and really unexpected. He stepped into the starting role and he could have just been average, but he was making plays, crucial plays, getting strip sacks, and then also having Carl Nassib, 2 really big edge rushers for the Bucs when they were really the only options on game day.
Yeah, let's hear Anthony Nelson. I don't want to leave him hanging. He was there as well. He talked about his growth as a player, how important it was that he got to start at the end of the year. And yeah, to your point, he led the team in forced fumbles with 3 last year, and he's going to try to build on that this season.
Yeah, I mean, being able to get some more opportunities definitely helps. It's a lot of work, though, throughout the 4 years. But it was nice to be able to show it, be able to produce, be able to help us win some games, win a division. So, it's just awesome to be able to be a part of something like that, and that's a big reason why I came back.
You replicated your set.
I think it was, like you said, it's just a little growth and mindset of, we're out there to stop them to get it back, but we can just take it away, make it a lot easier for ourselves. And then just, being able to get more opportunities, being more comfortable out there. It was just, playing more aggressively and going out there to make more plays.
As we wrap up the show, I do want to get your opinion on the upcoming quarterback situation that is going to take place in Tampa, Adam, between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. But first, let's hear a message from our friends over at Age Rejuvenation.
As we age, our hormones decrease, both for men and women.
I was tired all the time, had no sex drive.
I was groggy.
I felt like I was 80 years old because everything hurt.
I came to Age Rejuvenation because I was tired all the time.
Bioidentical hormones has really made such an impact in people's lives.
I actually enjoy shopping now.
Got all my energy back.
Mind is sharp.
I feel like I'm 18 again.
It was perfect for me.
Get with Age Rejuvenation. Do it now. Don't wait.
Call Age Rejuvenation today.
Better, feel better, have better sex using Age Rejuvenation. They have testosterone therapy, peptide therapy, and stem cell therapy. We have a lot of people at Pewter Report that have spoken very highly about, including former Buccaneer John Gilmore, who's part of the Pewter Game Day show. That's a current picture of John Gilmore. It looks like he still play right now. So he's spoken a ton about it. Scott Reynolds has mentioned how he's lost weight from it, how he feels 10 years younger, how he doesn't nap anymore, and how it's been super helpful for him. So go to agerejuvenation.com and see how it can help you. Okay, Adam. The big thing, Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. It's very early on. Both going to be competing for the starting QB role in Tampa Bay. Your early predictions before even seeing them hit the field in a new offense. Feel free to compare the two. Let's get a tail of the tape, as they say in boxing and the UFC. How do you see this shaking out?
So I see it shaking out as like during training camp and like throughout the offseason, preseason games, pretty even split maybe in reps between the two. To start the 2023 season, I see Baker Mayfield being the starting Bucs quarterback. And after every touchdown pass, I want to see a little shake and bake celebration, or maybe
cool.
some Baker Mayfield headbutts. That'd be awesome. But Baker Mayfield, he brings a lot of energy. He hasn't really gotten a fair shake in his career. At the stops with the Browns, he made the best of it, guided them to the playoffs after going through 30 quarterbacks pretty much. And they didn't have a playoff appearance since 1994. And then he came in, and I believe within 2 or 3 seasons, he led them to the playoffs. And going through the merry-go-round of quarterbacks in Carolina, and then being a late season pickup for the Rams, at every stop, maybe minus Carolina, he's played through not only injury, different coaches, different coordinators, and just having to adjust on the fly. Maybe he can finally settle in Tampa and claim the starting job. And haven't mentioned Kyle Trask at all yet, but he's still growing. And after 2 seasons behind the greatest quarterback of all time, he's learned so much. He's learned how to compete. He's learned, it was mentioned by Todd Bowles, every time he looked out the window, he was throwing.
Yeah.
He's trying to be a better quarterback, and he's developing. For some guys, it takes longer than others. You look at, I know you've seen the Aaron Rodgers news going to the Jets.
Yeah, I'm
but
well aware.
It took him 3 years to develop and finally get a chance before going in Green Bay and claiming the starting job that he held for 15 years. So for every quarterback, it's a different timeline. Kyle Trask, you don't really know until you look at the next training camp and what he looks like. It's going to be an open competition, but just based on experience and what Baker Mayfield has done in the league, having started nearly 70 games, I see him being the starter to open the 2023 season.
Where did the Packers take Aaron Rodgers? Was it the first round?
24th overall, first round.
Okay, yeah. So I hear what you're saying with the Rodgers comparison. I think it's a little bit different, though. It is the
second round pick. Yeah.
Well, it is the same in terms of they were playing behind a legendary quarterback. For the Bucs, it was Tom Brady. For the Packers, it was Brett Favre. So they were never going to get that starting job. The thing is, when Favre was out of the picture, went to the Jets like Aaron Rodgers is now, the Packers were all in on Aaron Rodgers, saying, Aaron, you're our guy. You're the starter. Kyle Trask, they brought in Baker. They didn't totally believe in Baker. And Kyle Trask wasn't even the backup. He was the third string guy with Blaine Gabbert there. Good night, sweet prince. Blaine Gabbert, unfortunately, won't be back with the Bucs. Hopefully he's on another team next season, though. So Trask not even being given the reins. And yes, he was a second-round pick, almost a third-round pick, because it's the last one in the second round. I don't think it means that the Bucs are not confident in him, but they're clearly not confident enough to say Kyle's the guy for next season. I think what they really like about Baker is that he's going to have that chip on his shoulder. He does have that fiery type of attitude, that FU type of, mindset against other teams, the competition he's going against. And I thought Jason, what he said today was pretty cool. He's like, yeah, in my career as the GM of the Bucs, this is really the first time that it's been like an open quarterback competition. And that's what you're really getting with Baker against Kyle Trask. I think it's really intriguing because Trask never got to work with like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, everyone else that we've talked about. And Baker, this is the best talent that he's going to be working with. So I think it's exciting for both of them in that case. It's a new offense that they're learning at the same time. There are some connections with Baker playing for the Rams, so I think that's really cool. But curious what you think about what Jason Licht says in this video, because he talks a lot. The question is about Baker, so he talks a lot more about Baker. But then he talks about how Baker and Kyle Trask are going to push each other. And without giving anything away, I just thought it was kind of interesting how Jason Licht phrased it. So I'll play the video and everyone can kind of make their own assumptions from it, including you, Adam. If I can find it. I found it.
All confirmed. Yeah,
okay.
We agreed to terms with
Baker Mayfield. Okay, I didn't want to step on any toes there if you guys are putting something out. Just what did you see in him and what made him an attractive option for you guys to sign at a spot that you didn't have a lot of cash available?
Yeah, so we've always, all of us in the front office and coaches as well, Todd, he's got a history with Baker, competing against each other. We've seen a fiery competitor, very confident, smart. He's got a very good arm. He's had a lot of success. He took Cleveland to the playoffs the first time since '94 when Coach Belichick was coaching. I mean, that says something. And we're excited to add him to the fray. It's going to be a great competition. It's going to be, since I've been here, really the real first legit QB competition in training camp, and which will be a lot of fun to watch. And it's going to make both of them better, and feel very confident about what Dave is going to do with the offense and with these quarterbacks. Very exciting. He can push them because both of them are great competitors. One's a little bit more outwardly competitive than the other. The other one is just as competitive, just more of a quiet competitor, a quiet type of competitor, but they're both equally competitive.
I think which is which, who Jason Licht was talking about, and I kind of think of it as a leadership role as well. There's the lead by example guys and the guys that are a little more vocal. And I kind of feel like the only leaders that lead by example are the guys that are like the best at their position. Like Rodgers isn't overly a loud guy when he was with the Packers, but he is unreal as a quarterback, so he leads by example. No player that's like average or mediocre has led by example. I don't know. It's just an odd way of saying you're the best player, so you have to be the leader, and you might not be as loud. So I don't know. I just thought when you think of like someone who's motivated or someone that is a competitor, I'm not saying you have to like be screaming in front of everybody, kind of like what Nacho would do, and good luck to Nacho with the New York Giants. But I don't know. I feel like the way he was like, yeah, Kyle, I know he didn't specifically say Kyle Trask, but like, yeah, he's a competitor, just like a little quiet about it. I don't know. I don't think he was dissing Kyle Trask, but when you have the way Jason talked about it, it definitely made me feel, I'm not saying Jason feels this way, but the way Jason described both of them, I'm thinking I'd rather take like the loud, boisterous competitor that's in your face. I don't know how you feel about it, Adam.
Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't say that one's less competitive than the other. I feel
also true.
He kind of had to say they're both equally competitive, but just the way he kind of worded it, like one's really fiery, like he's on the sidelines, like headbutting guys, or he's bringing a lot of energy and just kind of that charismatic personality. You didn't really see that with Kyle Trask on the sidelines this past season. You didn't really see it too much. He didn't really like give too many press conferences, or you didn't really hear much. It was more just kind of behind the scenes, and you kind of have to take Jason Licht's word for it, almost in a way that he is this competitor. He is quiet, but he's all about business when he's on the field. And we'll see. We'll see if that's actually the case.
Yeah, there's very much a long way to go when it comes to this. One more time, just want to give a shout out to Jason Licht for what he's done in free agency. Mike Greenberg as well, Jackie Davison, who we do not have a picture of. But shout out to Jason Licht, Mike Greenberg, Jackie Davison for all that they did for the Bucs during this free agency, re-signing some really key guys. And, we'll see what move that they have next. There were some talks today that on Monday, we're going to get to speak to Baker Mayfield, the newest Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and again, lobbying for that starting quarterback position. So Monday's show for everybody, just so you know, that's also going to be on 7 p.m. We're sticking with prime time for one more night because we are expected to speak to Baker Mayfield on Monday. So we'll have a lot of clips from his introductory press conference. If you like the clips that we put up, that we throw on our YouTube and all the stories that we write at pewterreport.com, do us a favor and follow us on our social media. It's at Pewter Report for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On our YouTube channel, which you're on right now, it's Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate that. Always trying to put out great content for everybody to watch and consume. But that's going to do it for us on tonight's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a great weekend. Happy St. Paddy's Day. That's tomorrow. Enjoy the March Madness. Enjoy whatever you're going to do this weekend. And we will see you on Monday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Peace out.